Ellie took advantage of my liking for her and often asked me to break up. Every time, I would try my best to keep her. The last time she asked for a breakup, I looked at her for a long time, and then we agreed that it would be 5 years she had finally exhausted my love for her. The day Ellie asked me to break up was actually because of a trivial matter. Her childhood sweetheart Jonathan had a birthday and happened to have returned from studying in the United States, so Ellie and a group of her childhood friends agreed to get together to celebrate Jonathan's birthday and welcome him. But Ellie forgot to tell me about this that day. Before leaving, I had already prepared the meal. It was her favorite soup that had been cooking for several hours. I asked her to drink some soup before leaving. While she was changing her shoes at the entrance, she casually said to me, "It's too late, I'll leave first." When she put on her shoes and was about to go out, I stopped her. She turned around. The black marble wall behind her made her look slim and charming, with a somewhat anxious expression on her face. I brought the soup over, held her wrist, and said, "You got up late and your stomach is empty. You have to go out for a social event later. Have some soup first to fill your stomach." She made an irritable sound and said, "Can you please stop meddling in other people's business? It's really annoying." After saying that, she waved her hand. I knew she probably didn't mean it, but I was still having a fever and didn't have much strength in my hands. So she waved her hand and the soup bowl in my hand fell to the marble floor. Soup and porcelain shards splashed everywhere. There was a moment of silence in the air. I paused and turned my gaze from the mess on the floor to her face. I tried to act calm and even smiled slightly. I asked her, "Are you so irritable and expectant today because Jonathan is back? I heard that he is single again." Before I was with Ellie, she had been in love with Jonathan for a long time, both openly and secretly. Later, when Jonathan got a girlfriend, she accepted me despite her sadness and got together with me. It has been 5 years now. This sentence hit her minefield. After so many years, Jonathan is still the most special person in her heart, even mentioning his name seems like blasphemy. Sure enough, she was instantly angry. An impatient expression appeared on her beautiful face, and her brows were tightly knitted together. She was a little angry. "Brian, what do you mean? Are you doubting me? Can you please stop being suspicious at the slightest sign of trouble? It's really annoying. If you have any objections, then let's break up." She often tells me to break up. This has become her catchphrase. To her, breaking up is not an event, but just a synonym for her to express her irritability. Every time she talks about breaking up, I will try to keep her, but only this time. After she finished speaking, I looked at her seriously for a long time, and then I laughed softly. I said, "Okay, Ellie." She looked a little surprised, but she ignored me and turned away because she was in a hurry. She couldn't be late for Jonathan's birthday party. It didn't take much time to pack up my things. Ellie didn't really like me invading her space, so I had very few things in her house. After cleaning up the mess in the living room, I looked at the remaining soup and put it in the refrigerator. This was probably the last time I made soup for Ellie. After everything was cleaned up, I opened WeChat. I wanted to say goodbye to Ellie properly. After all, we have been together for 5 years. But someone in our mutual friends group sent a video. It was in a KTV box. The colorful neon lights looked very lively. Ellie was singing, "Today You're Going to Marry Me," with a boy whom I hadn't seen for a long time but was very familiar with. It was Jonathan. This was the song that Ellie and I had to choose when we went out for karaoke. It wasn't that there was any special meaning to it, but when Jonathan was little, he always chased after Ellie and told her that he would marry her when he grew up, so this song was a joke between their friends. After watching the video, I thought about it and decided to close the WeChat chat box. I thought Ellie probably didn't need my farewell. I pulled my suitcase and looked at the empty and clean living room again before leaving. The mess that led to our quarrel was cleaned up by me, as if it had never existed. I sighed and began to thank Jonathan for returning to China, because in the few hours that Ellie had gone out to welcome him and celebrate his birthday, I was able to quietly and smoothly clear my things out of Ellie's house. I thought I would be a little sad after all. It had been 5 years. But I was probably too tired when I got home, so I fell asleep very peacefully. I received a call from Ellie at 2 in the morning. She must have drunk a lot of wine, her voice would be a little unclear than usual when she was drunk. She asked me, "Brian, you didn't come to pick me up?" I was half asleep and answered casually, "I'm sleeping, we can talk tomorrow if there's anything." As soon as I finished speaking, the other end hung up the phone with a beep. I have a light sleep, and being disturbed by Ellie made me sober after hanging up the phone. I was surprised that she called me. She was reunited with her childhood sweetheart tonight after a long time. She should have sent Jonathan home properly, but I didn't expect her to call me and ask why I didn't pick her up. But then I thought, this is probably another bet between her and her friends. When I first got together with Ellie, she went to a bar with some friends. It was raining that day, and I didn't want to disturb her and her friends drinking and partying, so I waited for her in the bookstore opposite the bar because I was worried that she would go home alone after getting drunk. I saw her as soon as she came out, and then I walked up to her with an umbrella, smiled at her and said, "Ellie, let's go home." I always think that "let's" and "go home" are two very warm words. At that time, her friends were all cheering, saying, "Oh my God, Miss Ellie, someone as crazy as Brian is, how did you get a loving and considerate boyfriend?" There was no need to cheat. I chased after her. But no matter how envious others were, she was still quite annoyed at the time. Maybe I was too good to her without any personality or challenge. People are mean at heart. She asked me at that time, "Brian, don't you have your own life?" I was actually very busy at work. I had just been invited to hold my own solo exhibition at that time. Apart from the time for creation, almost all of my time and energy were on her. I remember I smiled at her and said, "You are also my life." At that time, I felt that this was my silent confession to her over the long years. Now think about it, she must have been very annoyed. Later, one time, I was painting at the door of the bar while waiting for her to come out and go home together. When she came out and saw me, she smiled as expected. Then her friends gave her 100 yuan each and said, "You won the bet again." Ellie made a bet with them, saying that I would definitely pick her up. This time, she must have lost the bet, so she called me in a rage. I got up from the bed and poured a glass of water. When I finished drinking it and went into the bedroom, I received another call from Ellie. There were several missed calls. I was a little surprised when I picked up the phone. I asked, "What's wrong?" There was a pause on the other end. I couldn't hear any emotion in her voice. She asked, "Brian, I'm back. Where are your things?" She actually noticed that I had cleared my things out of her house. I thought it would take her at least some time to find out. I patiently reminded her in a soft voice, "Ellie, have you forgotten that we broke up? You said it yourself 7 hours ago, and I agreed." She was silent on the other end of the phone. Just when I thought the call was not disconnected, she suddenly said angrily, "Okay, don't come back and beg me to get back together." Ellie didn't understand. I wouldn't get back with her. It's very strange, in the 5 years I had been with her, I had never felt disappointed or tired of this relationship, and I had never thought of leaving. But now that I have left, I am not sad. Victor said that my love for Ellie is like the money she has in the bank. He was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, eating potato chips, with the image of a wise man. He said, "Brian, your love for Ellie is like the money she has in her bank card. She has been overdrawing it. I hadn't deposited any money into it, so now the account is in deficit." It's a very interesting metaphor. I think my love for Ellie is also in a state of deficit. Victor asked me what I was going to do next. I shrugged and said, "Work." I had already agreed on the venue and investment for my personal theme exhibition. I needed to spend about a year traveling around the world and using my brush to capture the most beautiful scenes I could find. The first stop was the Red Wine River in Spain. Because the source of this river contains pyrite and copper, the entire river vein is the color of red wine. I wanted to try whether I could use the water of this river as paint for my creation. It's really exciting to think about it. Before leaving, Victor was still saying, "I feel relieved to see you like this." I was also worried that I would be sad when I saw Ellie's moments. I had seen that Ellie is not a person who likes to post on moments. We had been together for 5 years and she had probably only posted a few updates. But these days, her moments are just like the new year. There are photos of her accompanying Jonathan to check in at various scenic spots in City A, and photos of her accompanying Jonathan to eat various delicacies. I could understand her inner happiness that Jonathan was back. But she posted to moments so frequently that I almost started to suspect that she was sending them to me on purpose, as if to make me jealous. But I suppressed the thought as soon as it came to my mind. I slid up the phone interface and laughed it off. Victor looked at me in admiration and said, "You are worthy of me. You have taken loyalty and ruthlessness to the extreme. Loyalty is my greatest respect for a relationship, and ruthlessness is my respect for myself." In the taxi on the way back, I saw Ellie's moments again. She had taken Jonathan to the zoo and posted a photo of the two of them taking a selfie with an alpaca. I exited moments, thought about it, and changed my profile picture. My profile picture was taken by Ellie. On our first anniversary together, we went out to travel. I was eating a popsicle and inadvertently walked into her lens while she was taking a picture of the scenery. Ellie frowned when she looked at the photo and wanted to delete it, but I liked it so much that I used it as my profile picture for 5 years. I changed my profile picture to my new cat. I received Ellie's WeChat message before I got on the plane. It was the 14th day since we broke up and had no contact. She sent me a question mark and then said, "You changed your profile picture." It was a short statement. Although I didn't see her expression, I could imagine her looking at her phone with a frown and a look of dissatisfaction. I thought about it and turned off the phone without replying. Then I boarded a plane to Spain. I spent a very pleasant month in the Spanish wine river. I turned off my phone, put social life and trivial matters behind my mind, and concentrated on conceiving my creation. I also met a very interesting person named Diana. When we first met, I was rolling up my trouser legs and going down to the river to collect silt. This is the raw material for my paintings. She suddenly rushed over from behind me, hugged me, and tried to pull me out of the water. I thought I had met an attacker. Although I was panicked for a moment, I decisively smeared the full silt in my hand onto her face. Her face was full of red mud and she couldn't open her eyes, but her hand still held me firmly. She opened her mouth and said in English, "It will all be over soon, you have a long lifetime." She was persuading me not to commit suicide. She thought I was in the river because I was depressed and wanted to commit suicide. I gave up struggling, and my tense nerves relaxed. I felt a little funny. I patted her hand around my waist and told her that I was just collecting mud. We got to know each other because I slammed her face and there was too much mud that she couldn't see the road. I led her to the nearest clean water source to wash her face. Her face was very beautiful after washing. She was also Chinese. It is always a pleasant surprise to meet people like you in a foreign country. After everything was packed, I apologized to her with some guilt. She was quite free and easy, not angry. She smiled brightly and was a very sunny lady. She gave me a thumbs up and praised my awareness of prevention and good reaction ability. She said that she was on vacation from the beach in southern Spain. On the road A461 passing through Ubisoft province, she saw me in the river and thought I wanted to commit suicide. With the idea that saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, she rushed over to hug me and almost went blind. After listening to my creative concept, she was very interested. She is a very curious person. In the end, she changed her itinerary temporarily and wanted to see whether the pigments mixed with the water of the red wine river and the silt could restore the local style. I accepted her request generously. She is a very decent and sensible person. She maintains a good distance in social situations and does not make people feel offended. Therefore, we get along very comfortably. For example, she never disturbs me when I am concentrating on my creation. Sometimes, I stay up all night and forget to eat and sleep. She will ask the waiter to bring food to my door and knock on the door 3 times gently without making too many disturbances. When I came out of the room, more than half a month had passed. The son of the hotel owner was chatting with Diana. The locals seemed to like her very much. She refused with great grace. Then she looked at me, looked me up and down, and said with a slight smile, "When your paintings are exhibited, people will definitely not be able to imagine what the painter behind this painting has experienced." I laughed too. I was covered in paint and mud, and I looked as if I had just been picked up from the ground, but I had just completed my masterpiece. I didn't care about Diana's teasing. I looked up at her, smiled, and asked excitedly, "Aren't you very curious? It's time to satisfy your curiosity." She looked at me and was slightly stunned for some reason. Then I took her to my studio. The long painting of 100 meters reproduced the scenery along the Red Wine River in great detail. The astonishment and surprise in her eyes when she entered the room satisfied me very well. She admired it for a long time, then tilted her head to look at me and said very seriously that it was her honor to be the first viewer of this painting. After that, I treated her to a meal to thank her for her tacit care during these days. We parted 3 days later. We are both casual people and did not even ask for each other's contact information. To us, the other party just added a bit of fun to this journey and was an unexpected person along the way. After satisfying her curiosity, she continued with her original travel itinerary, while I planned to return to China after staying for a few more days. Unexpectedly, we met again on the flight back to China. I was very lucky the flight attendant upgraded my seat to first class. When I walked in, I thought I had recognized the wrong person, because before we parted, Diana had said she would stay for another half a month. Diana was also slightly stunned when she saw me, then shrugged helplessly and said there was a rebellion at home and in the company, and she had to return to take charge of the overall situation. I couldn't help but smile. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when we landed in Beijing. Diana's driver was waiting outside the airport. She asked me very gracefully, "If it's not offensive, I'll take you home first." I thought about it, didn't pretend to be polite, and accepted. The car stopped downstairs at my place. I got out and thanked Diana. Because I had too much luggage, she got out of the car gracefully and asked if I needed help bringing it to the elevator. When I was hesitating, someone suddenly called me from the shadows near the flower bed in the green belt. It was Ellie. I couldn't tell from her tone whether she was happy or angry. I turned my head. Most of her was shrouded in shadows. She slowly walked into the brightly lit area. She had lost a lot of weight in just over a month. Her eyes moved from Diana to my face, and then she sneered. She said, "I thought you broke up with me for some reason, but it turns out you cheated on me." I tried my best to stay calm, thanked and said goodbye to Diana first. She and I were just casual acquaintances, but I was very grateful for her care. She was also considerate. She glanced at Ellie and asked if I needed help. After I shook my head, she left very decently and politely, giving me space to deal with things alone. Ellie stared at me, almost glaring, like a stray cat about to be abandoned. The pretended ferocity in her eyes was just a cover for panic. She asked, "Did you break up with me because you changed your mind?" I don't know why, but I felt a little tired, probably from the years of accommodating her emotions. She was always polite and distant to others, but always took me for granted and acted superior. I was really fed up, but I still tried to stay calm and explained patiently, "Ellie, it was you who proposed the breakup. Diana and I are just strangers who met by chance in Spain. You can't do this again." I thought about it but couldn't find the right words. My tone probably surprised Ellie. She was stunned for a moment, and a trace of hurt flashed across her eyes. Then, after a long time, she suddenly spoke very softly. This was probably the first time she showed weakness to me in the 5 years we'd been together. She said, "I heard from Victor that you would be back tonight. I've been waiting since 6 in the evening. Brian, you didn't reply to my WeChat." After a pause, she asked, "In the more than 1 month since we separated, have you ever thought about me?" I didn't expect her to ask such a question. I was slightly stunned, but when I thought back to the past month, I only felt the satisfaction of creation. I hadn't thought about Ellie even once. I could only remain silent. She stared at me intently under the streetlight, as if trying to see through my expression into my heart. After a long while, she suddenly laughed at herself and murmured, I don't believe it. Ellie had the confidence to disbelieve. I had liked her for a long, long time, probably too long. Now I couldn't even recall the reason I was moved by her in the beginning, as if the affection had been worn away by the years. The subsequent accommodation and care were just the inertia of residual warmth from loving her for so long. I knew she had always liked her childhood sweetheart Jonathan. She gave up only when Jonathan went abroad with a female teacher from school. I don't know if young love is always so brave and fearless. That night, she chased after him to the airport alone and saw the female teacher holding Jonathan's hand. The two walked into the boarding gate, laughing. She sat in the airport until nightfall. The bright neon lights illuminated her sadness. After a long time, she stood up and walked out of the airport. I was worried about her then, so I followed her all the way. She vented all her anger and sorrow on me and asked, "Are you following me to make fun of me? Go away." I stood about 50 meters behind her and said quietly, "I'm just worried about you." She walked all the way back to the dormitory from the airport that night. It took her a whole night to walk more than 10 kilometers. That was probably the most embarrassing night of her life. I followed silently and walked with her through the night. In the morning, as she reached the dormitory, she turned around and asked, "Do you really like me? Let's be together." I was stunned for a moment, then laughed. We've been together ever since that day, 5 years now. Victor once said I was a simp, but I'm actually just straightforward. Life is only a few decades long, and I just want to do what I want. When Ellie asked if we should be together, I asked myself 4 questions in the 10 seconds I stood there stunned. Do you know that Ellie likes someone else? Yes. Do you know that Ellie doesn't like you? Yes. Will you regret rejecting Ellie? Yes. Do you want her? Yes. The answer was simple. It's like the saying, a forced melon is not sweet, but how do you know if it's sweet unless you eat it? I knew exactly what I was doing, calmly and rationally. It was like this when I was with her 5 years ago, it's also like this when we broke up 5 years later. I got what I wanted. Compared with those who have never been with the person they like, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, but fortunately, I can take it and let it go. I let Ellie go. Ellie was still standing in front of me, her slender figure cutting through the shadows of the street lights. She lowered her head slightly and looked at me, as if trying to find the sadness I was pretending not to show. I don't know why, but I suddenly asked, "Ellie, do you still remember the first time you broke up with me?" She probably didn't expect that question, so she was stunned. The first time she broke up with me was when we had been together for about 3 months. She mentioned it casually on WeChat, then seemed to forget about it. She and her friends went on a 7-day trip to Tibet. I waited for her downstairs at her dorm the day she came back. It was raining, my hair and clothes were soaked, and I had a fever. She was shocked when she saw me and asked, "Why are you here?" I was actually quite sad at the time, but I still smiled at her. She was probably soft-hearted then. Her heart didn't care much who she was with because Jonathan had died, so we got back together. I asked her, "Ellie, the first time we broke up, did you think of me during those days in Tibet?" I sighed and said, "You and I were in the same state back then." Her face became gloomier. Finally, she took a few steps back and turned away. In her opinion, by coming to see me tonight, she had already lowered herself enough, and I still rejected her. How ungrateful. She had the right to be angry. Victor was very surprised when he found out Ellie came to see me and asked, "Miss Ellie, didn't she realize she had fallen deeply in love with you after losing you?" I smiled and said nothing. Rather than saying she fell in love with me, it's more accurate to say it was just possessiveness. The once obedient, clingy boyfriend who was always around her disappeared cleanly after the breakup. No WeChat, no reconciliation, no lingering concern or care. It was like a pet dog that always circled you, wagging its tail. Then one day, you come home and it ignores you. You'd be curious and wave a bone in front of it to test its reaction. To Ellie, I was that dog. She came to me simply because my behavior after the breakup defied her expectations. She wanted to wave that bone and see if I was still under her control. As long as I showed even the tiniest bit of nostalgia or affection, I believe she would have gotten bored and left again. Victor said I was overthinking it. I didn't respond. Then Ellie began appearing in my life frequently. Funny enough, she came to me more often after we broke up than in the entire last year we were together. At first, it was because she found the stuffed bear I had left at her place. It was the first birthday gift she ever gave me. I liked hugging her while I slept, so she gave me the bear to substitute for that. She called and asked, "Are you going to come get it, or should I give it to you?" I paused and said, "No, just throw it away." Ellie was silent for a long time. When she hung up, I added, "If you find anything else of mine, just deal with it. Don't contact me again." She didn't say anything. That evening, she called again. I didn't answer at first, but the phone kept ringing. I sighed and picked it up. She was drunk. I was surprised she'd always been someone who knew her limits and never got drunk. Slurring her words, she said, "You left something with me." I replied, "I don't want it. Please throw it away." Then I added, "Ellie, don't call me late at night anymore. I won't answer in the future." She pretended not to hear me and said, "The necklace. The one you like, designed by Cesar. I bought it and you forgot to take it." It was the 5th anniversary gift we had planned. The necklace had symbolic meaning, designed based on a 5-year love story. Ellie had agreed to it, but on the day of our anniversary, she forgot both the necklace and the occasion. 3 days later, Jonathan returned from the US. All she wanted was to celebrate her childhood sweetheart's birthday. She had gifts ready for him, and then we broke up. You see, the reason I stopped loving her wasn't just one thing, it was the buildup of many little things. My voice turned cold as I said, "It's too late, Ellie." There was noise on the other end, then someone else picked up. Her friend apologized, saying, "Brian, I'm sorry. Ellie's drunk." She hesitated before asking sadly, "Is there really no chance for you two to get back together?" I hung up. Afterward, I stared at the ceiling. It would be a lie to say my heart wasn't stirred. I did love her once. I just sighed. Her sudden change in attitude was too drastic. I couldn't reconcile the cold Ellie from before with the tender one now. Her gentleness never quite fit. After that call, Ellie disappeared for a long time. I didn't see her again until 3 months later. We had broken up in early summer, and now it was late autumn. The weather was bleak and cold. She was wearing a black long windbreaker. Though we were no longer together, I had to admit she looked beautiful. She leaned against the gate of my apartment complex, smoking. After Jonathan and his professor left for further studies abroad, she had started drinking, staying up late, and smoking again, eventually ending up in the hospital. After her discharge, she tried to restrain herself. I don't know why she started again. When she heard footsteps, she looked up at me. She looked tired. "I'm sorry," she said, "I know I'm bothering you, but my mom is coming to City A this weekend, and I haven't told her about the breakup." It was strange. Ellie didn't seem to like me much when we were together, but her mother did. She held my hand the first time we met and praised me, even giving me a meaningful pen. After we broke up, I placed that pen on Ellie's bedside table. Her mother has a heart condition. I hesitated. There was a hint of pleading in Ellie's expression. "Just 2 days. I'll explain it all to her later," she said. I nodded hesitantly. She sighed in relief when she saw me nod, then took 2 steps back. She actually learned to respect me and said, "Thank you." Before leaving, she handed me the bag in her hand. "It's getting colder in autumn. You have to protect your throat in advance. This is an old problem of mine. My throat often gets inflamed repeatedly when autumn turns to winter. Every year, Ellie asks a friend to buy me a kind of health product from Australia. As long as I take it in advance for prevention, it's okay." I didn't expect that she actually remembered it. I held the bag and watched her leave. Suddenly, I felt a subtle mixture of emotions. Ellie's mother came for 2 days and then left. In order to avoid being discovered, I moved some of my things to Ellie's house. After her mother left, I packed my things. Ellie followed me silently the whole time. When I was pushing the suitcase to go down the stairs, she suddenly grabbed my hand. She had a slender figure and beautiful eyes. When she didn't have any expression, she looked a little cold. She lowered her eyes, so I couldn't guess her expression. She asked, "Can't I stay?" After a pause, she looked up at me and explained with some forbearance that there was really nothing between Jonathan and her. I admit that I did have some waves when he came back, but that was just a normal reaction to someone I liked before. I never thought about being with him. Her voice was actually slightly choked. She slowed down before continuing, "It was wrong of me to break up with you. There won't be a next time. Brian, can you give me one chance?" I had never seen her like this. I turned around and left in a distracted state. Maybe I was thinking about something. The moment I turned around, I stepped on empty air and rolled down the stairs. My lower leg was fractured. Ellie had been with me in the hospital, helping me with the hospitalization procedures and taking care of me. When I woke up after the operation, she had fallen asleep beside my bed. The hospital was short of beds, with 4 beds in one ward. Her slender figure was squeezed into the narrow accompanying chair, looking a little pitiful. Even in her sleep, her brows were still furrowed and she looked uneasy. Her other hand was still covering my hand in her sleep, probably because she was afraid that I would make any noise at night and she could wake up with just a move. I thought about it but didn't pull my hand out. The numbing medicine on my leg was slowly wearing off. The gradually rising pain was keeping me awake. I kept my eyes open and recalled a long time ago. At that time, I had just graduated and entered society. I was known as a genius graduate of the school. A female investor from a gallery asked me out for dinner. I was young and didn't have much of a defensive mentality. I just thought that this investor really saw my talent. It wasn't until she started to persuade me to drink a few more glasses and her words became more and more frivolous, she even took the opportunity of a toast to put her hand on my arm, that I realized what was going on. I used the excuse of hiding in the bathroom to call Ellie. After listening to my description, she told me not to leave the bathroom. Later, she came over and snatched the wine glass that the investor was about to hand me, smashed it hard on the ground, and then pointed at the other person's nose and warned her sternly. She told me not to come out because she wanted to minimize the impact of the incident and not involve me. Later, I learned that she had an interview for her favorite company that day. She had passed the first 3 rounds and was about to meet the director. She received my call before the interview and then she came with an offer. I don't know why, but suddenly, I remembered all the good things she had done. In the barren soil of our love, there were actually such beautiful moments. To be honest, I was a little shaken. She stayed with me in the hospital until I was discharged. I told her that it was not necessary Victor would come to accompany me. I actually wanted to cut the Gordian knot, but she insisted on taking part of the responsibility and thought that my fall down the stairs was also caused by her. After hearing Ellie's words, Victor said that there was a possibility of our reconciliation and decided not to come to the hospital anymore. The grandmother in the next bed looked at us, smiled, and asked me, "Young man, your girlfriend is really responsible. There aren't many good girls like this now." I smiled, and when I looked up, I saw Ellie standing at the end of the bed, staring at me nervously. Then, after a while, she suddenly smiled and the smile poured from the corner of her eyes to the corner of her lips. Until we were discharged from the hospital and got in her car, she tilted her head to look at me and said, "I'm very happy. Brian, when the grandmother just now said that I was your girlfriend, you didn't deny it." I opened my mouth, but I actually just felt that it was unnecessary, because she had been with me for so long. After explaining to outsiders that she was not my girlfriend, she would inevitably be chased and questioned again. Anyway, we were all going to be discharged from the hospital, and I just thought it was better to have less trouble. But I looked at the smile on her lips, sighed, and still didn't say anything. Ellie still wanted to go on. If it was the Ellie of today, I would actually be willing to give it a try. Can the love lost in the dust of time ever come back? This thought lasted until Ellie sent me to her house. I had fallen in a hurry that day, and my luggage was still with Ellie. Her mother brought me some dried fish that I really liked last time, so after we came out of the hospital, we went to her house to get things first. However, after the door opened, I saw Jonathan. He was wearing a simple apron and holding freshly made snacks in his hands. He looked like a male host and smiled gently. He said, "Hey Ellie, you're back. You said you were going to accompany Brian out of the hospital today, so I thought you probably wouldn't have time to eat. Come in quickly." He waved at us, and I accidentally caught a glimpse of a pen in his shirt pocket. That pen was the one Ellie's mother gave me. I had put it on Ellie's bedside table after we broke up. My sight moved from the pen to Ellie's face, and then I stood at the door. I laughed, suddenly relieved and indifferent. At that moment, I knew that Ellie and I would never be together in this life. No matter whether it was 5 years ago or 5 years later, when we stood together, I would always be the one who didn't fit in. But it doesn't matter, I don't mind anymore. I stood at the door, politely and distantly, and refused. "No, I'm in a hurry to go back. I won't disturb you." Then I tilted my head to look at Ellie. "I won't go in. Please take out my things." "Thank you." Her face was a little pale. She glanced at Jonathan and then at me. Before entering the door to get the luggage, she said to me, "I'll explain to you later." I didn't say anything. After she entered the door, the smile on Jonathan's face faded a little. He stared at me with unfriendly eyes, as if I was an intruder, with a smile that was a little sarcastic. "You won't let me lose money, will you?" I raised my eyebrows in confusion. He smiled and explained, "On the day I returned to China, they said that you broke up with Ellie. Ellie and her friends said that within 3 months, you would pester me to get back together. Later, the bet was extended to half a year. Ellie and her friends all bet that you would come back, only I bet that you wouldn't." He asked me word by word, "You won't let me lose the money?" I looked at him and didn't reply. I just said lightly, "I don't know whether you will lose the money or not. I only know that Ellie's friends should have won the money. Your female teacher abandoned you in the United States. When you had to come back, her friends were all gambling. Would you shamelessly come back to find Ellie as a backup?" I smiled, looked at his livid face, and said, "Now it seems that her friends should have won." Ellie just pushed out the luggage. I took it and smiled, "Thank you, no need to send me off. Victor is here to pick me up. I won't bother you anymore." At the very end, I looked at Ellie and smiled with relief. I said, "Ellie, if you want me to keep a good impression of you in my memory, please don't contact me again." This was the last sentence I said to her, and it was also the last time I saw her. It was also the last good thing she did for me. 2 years later, I saw Diana at the art exhibition. She stopped in front of my painting of Red River wine. I walked over to her and looked at it with her. We didn't exchange any polite greetings after not seeing each other for 2 years. It was like we were friends who had known each other for many years. She tilted her head, looked at me, and smiled. "I saw the news about your art exhibition. So I came. It was just as good as I imagined." After a pause, she asked with a smile, "After the exhibition, can we invite this painter to have a meal together?" I smiled back and said, "Of course. Time flies, seasons change, the sun sets and the moon appears, spring passes, and there are summer, autumn, and winter. Life is so long and there are many sceneries. You have to take your time to appreciate them. As for the future, you will know the answer only after you have done it." At the end of the article, I heard her friend inadvertently complain that this song was sung by Ellie and Jonathan. 2 weeks before the anniversary, I told her that I liked it. Later, Ellie never took credit for it in front of me or accused me of causing her to lose her favorite.